Alex.
No doubt. Well, the impact of climate change can be seen and felt all around us. Increased drought, more severe storms, melting glaciers, and shifting seasons. How about this impact on the animals and the way they behave? Well, joining us now on the phone is Cody Reeves. He's a wildlife expert and manager of the Yellow River Game Ranch in Lilburn, Georgia. Cody, thank you so much for joining us here this morning. Now, of course, we've been talking about the drought situation across the western half of the country. How is that changing the animals' behavior in that region?
But, when we have the drought like that, it obviously affects the vegetation, which a lot of the animals rely on, for food. And so they start to wander and look elsewhere for food. And so they obviously encroach upon, neighborhoods and development. And so they come into contact with people more often than they normally would.
Now, can you give us a good example here, so to put it in perspective on just how impactful climate change is when it comes to animals and their behavior?
Well, the animals, they have an innate sense of how the weather, what's going to happen with the weather. And so, whenever a drought or, a big snowfall comes, it automatically causes them to change their behavior and their habits. And, with the development of residential areas and everything, they run out of places to go. And so where they used to look for leaves to eat, now they come into the yard to eat grass. And so all of a sudden they're in our backyards. And, they're very good at adapting. And so their new adaptation is to eat our grass or our flowers or the food that we put out for our pets. And so they become reliant upon that.
Now, tell us a little bit about the work that you do down in Lilburn, Georgia, and how some of that work actually impacts and relates to animal behavior and climate change.
Well, we take in a lot of rescue animals that couldn't make it in the wild for whatever reason, and we give people a chance to see them up close, and sometimes even get a little bit of a chance to interact with them, but that's the only time people should really do that is when they are in a contained environment, not in their backyards. Because even though they may look sweet and innocent, they're still wild animals, and so they become, they can become dangerous. And they're looking for food, and they'll do whatever they can to eat because that's just their nature.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you so much, Cody Reeves, manager of the Yellow River Game Ranch in Lilburn, Georgia. We appreciate you talking to us this morning. Of course, we'll be back with more in your winter weather update.